The Surrender Experiment: My Journey into Life's Perfection by Michael A. Singer. Published in 2015. The Surrender Experiment by best-selling author Michael A. Singer is a spiritual memoir that chronicles Singer's quest to embrace whatever the universe presented to him at any given moment. Singer's experiment with surrender began in 1970, when he was enrolled in a graduate-level economics program at the University of Florida, and realized that there was a voice inside his head, often critical and judgmental. As Singer became increasingly aware of his negative inner voice, his curiosity spiked. What was the voice? What was his identity beyond the voice, meaning the part of his being that had the ability to make such observations about his inner voice? Months later, Singer was introduced to 3 Pillars of Zen by Philip Kapleau when a colleague in his doctoral program gave him the book. Singer was amazed that Kapleau's book was about Singer's obsession, quieting mental chatter. The only way to stop the voice, according to Kapleau, was to meditate. Singer thus began his lifelong commitment to meditation and Zen Buddhism. In meditation, Singer went deep into his own consciousness, where he felt only peace. He came to feel a flow of energy inside, which matched with the flow of the universe. As his consciousness started to shift, so did his eternal life. His wife Shelley left him, and he became less interested in his graduate program. Meditation carried him through the pain of his divorce. During this transitional period, Singer decided that he would surrender to the flow of life, sidestepping his personal preferences in favor of accepting whatever situation life had presented him with. He purchased several acres of land for $15,000 and moved to the woods. Singer's surrender experiment was, at times, hard for him to adjust to. For example, after settling into the woods and building a structure, he was eager for a lifestyle of seclusion. Yet he found himself having to encounter others, such as a woman named Sandy, who began to take walks around his property, and asked if she might pitch a tent on the periphery. She brought others with her for Sunday meditations. Singer, bewildered, did not want to have people on his property, but he relented, remembering his decision to release any resistance to what life was showing him at any given moment. As with many other examples of Singer having initial resistance, Sandy and her friends turned out to be a gift that Singer cherished. More students came to his property for meditation and spiritual talks. Opportunities arose to host spiritual leaders from all over the world. In 1975, the spiritual community on Singer's land founded the Temple of the Universe, a place for students to gather. Without his conscious effort, a thriving community organically developed out of Singer's insistence on staying present to the opportunities unfolding before him. Over the years, Singer drifted into a number of impressive feats, including the establishment of a multi-million-dollar medical software company. Singer's commitment to surrender served him even when the FBI raided his company because one of his employees had embezzled millions through an insurance scheme. He let go of his resistance to the investigation. Singer, who claimed to have no knowledge of the crimes, was eventually charged with securities fraud. Eventually, Singer paid a fine, and the charges were dropped. Surrender has shown Singer the inevitable perfection of life's flow. No one can control life's events, so it is far better to sync up with universal flow and energy. Key insights. 1. Mental chatter is often fear-based and therefore doesn't reflect the true nature of life. 2. What life has to offer is far greater than what the average person is able to grasp. 3. Creative inspiration is a sustainable state of existence. 4. Pushing oneself is spiritually rewarding. 5. Acceptance is a profoundly important spiritual practice. 6. Courage is required for staying open to the variability of life. 7. The need for control is the biggest obstacle to experiencing the miraculous flow of life. 8. Staying focused and fully present for whatever tasks are at hand leads to success. Analysis. Key Insight 1. Mental chatter is often fear-based and therefore doesn't reflect the true nature of life. Most people are unaware of how much their inner voice shapes their worldview. Internal dialogue is often concerned with potential danger, and listening to that negative voice makes people vigilant. Despite what the inner voice would suggest, the universal flow to which all beings have access is kind. With headlines about mass violence, natural disasters, and political turmoil, it's easy to understand why the majority of people do not see the universe as kind. However, the universe is often an inherently kind place, as can be seen in the story of how a stolen bicycle in Brooklyn set off a chain of generosity. A woman had her bicycle stolen from the front of her apartment building. Upset, she decided to write the thief a large, visible note on cardboard to let him or her know that she didn't have the $200 required to buy a new bicycle and that she relied on her bicycle to get to work. The woman was shocked when two young men showed up on her front doorstep with a spare bike they had lying around. They felt badly for her loss and gifted her the extra bike. Then, another woman rang her doorbell, and while she didn't have a bike, she wanted to know what kind of bike the woman wanted, in case she found one that might be suitable. Finally, a man stopped by and asked if he might buy her sign for $200. Clearly, he knew that she would be able to buy a replacement bike with that amount of money. He had some friends pitch in, and they bought the bike together. The generosity of strangers was incredibly touching to the woman. She bought a new bike. She also fixed up the bike the young men had gifted her so that she might be able to give it to someone else in need. She was amazed at the outpouring of humanity, all because she had opened herself up to the universe by putting the sign up. Key Insight 2. What life has to offer is far greater than what the average person is able to grasp. Accessing the universe's energy is a potent act, opening up a portal for incredible experiences. It's easy to function without accessing the universe's inherent generosity. For example, hyper-planning keeps people closed off from this powerful energy. However, opening up to it requires letting go of the notion that it's possible to control life's events. Take the hypothetical example of Teresa. Teresa found herself in a tough spot, with only a few days to find a place to live. She had been living with her boyfriend until she learned he was unfaithful. A friend let her use his apartment but was returning in a few days. She didn't want to burden friends by asking to sleep on their couch. Making matters worse, she was about to start a big project at work, and she felt it was a test. If she didn't perform well, her boss had hinted she might want to look for another job. With her living and work situations uncertain, Teresa set about to find a temporary sublet, but every place she looked at seemed too far, too expensive, or simply not inhabitable. She spent hours scouring housing ads to no avail. A friend suggested she try having faith that everything would work out instead of worrying. Teresa's stress levels were so high that she decided she'd try anything. Following her friend's lead, she went to yoga and then sat in a long meditation. She answered her voice of worry by telling herself that she would surrender to the inherent intelligence of the universe. After her meditation, Teresa was able to experience life differently. She was so present that she couldn't help but notice the beautiful color of the sky, as well as architectural details on a building she'd seen nearly every day. Her calmer way of experiencing the world helped to quell her anxiety. Then she saw a building located on a river and thought, "It would be great to live here." She went home, and the next day, she received an email from a friend who knew someone who lived in the very building she had said she wanted to live in. The friend had no idea that Teresa had thought that about the building, but was instead acting on a hunch. Teresa went immediately to look at the apartment. It had gorgeous views of the water, and the peace it inspired matched the peace she'd felt in her meditation. Teresa had found her new home, not by worrying, but by letting go of the worry, so that the universe could show how magical and miraculous life can be when people surrender. Key Insight 3. Creative inspiration is a sustainable state of existence. Creative inspiration comes from a deep sense of peace that cannot be accessed by using rational thinking only. In fact, the logical mind is the enemy of creative flow. Julia Cameron's The Artist Way, a best-selling book on the intersection of spirituality and creativity, outlines a program to help people access that higher state of creative inspiration on a regular basis. For Cameron, each person has access to divinity or some transcendent force that encourages creativity. Creative expression, then, is dependent upon getting in sync with the universe's essential flow. After all, personal expressions of creativity are essential components of the universe. Examining and exploring the creativity that exists within is a gateway to experiencing the more transcendent forms of creativity that exist in the larger universe. These essential connections are mystical in nature, not rational. Therefore, to stay in a sustained state of creativity is possible, as long as an effort is made to link personal creativity with the larger universal form of creativity. A world in which flowers bloom with no concerted effort. 7 to 10 hours per week is enough to practice life-sustaining creativity with exercises such as daily writing prompts. Similar to meditation, creativity can become a lifelong practice. Key Insight 4. Pushing oneself is spiritually rewarding. Surrender can sometimes lead to heightened responsibilities, as the universe may present opportunities that require reaching beyond comfort zones. Rising to challenges helps people achieve more than they thought might be possible. Mel Robbins, a self-help author and motivational speaker, explored the power of showing up to tackle everyday challenges in the 5-second rule: transform your life, work, and confidence with everyday courage. Her methodology came to being when she found herself struggling in 2010. Her finances were shaky, and her marriage was in serious trouble. She felt depressed and unproductive. It occurred to her that if she wanted to make significant changes in her life, she had to act, not hesitate. She began tackling problems in tiny 5-second increments. As soon as she had a goal in mind, such as getting out of bed early, she would act on it within 5 seconds or lose momentum completely. Her tool for rising to the challenge of turning her life around was based on the idea that the more she could push herself to achieve, the happier she would be. She used this rule to turn her finances around and build and sell 2 small businesses. But in addition to the tangible successes, this rule helped Robbins become a happier person. By living up to her potential, she became more fulfilled inside. Achievement isn't so much about earning a fancy title or award. It's about feeling productive and fully present for life. Key Insight 5. Acceptance is a profoundly important spiritual practice. The inner voice often expresses personal likes or dislikes and devotes a lot of time to resisting what is. Instead of arguing with the natural order of the universe, people can instead accept the circumstances they find themselves in. Learning acceptance is an effective way of quieting the mind. In The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, a practical guide to the fulfillment of your dreams, best-selling author and New Age thought leader Deepak Chopra addresses the importance of acceptance in his fourth law, the law of least effort. According to Chopra, when people are overly concerned with power and ego-driven struggles, they waste a lot of energy. When people detach from their own ego, they are free to act as channels of divine energy. Acceptance is required for this detachment. Accepting situations and people as they are means embracing the present moment for what it is, not what it could or should be according to personal wants. When people don't fight against the present moment, they can conserve the energy they would have otherwise spent resisting what is. Acceptance leads to greater peace. Key Insight 6. Courage is required for staying open to the variability of life. Surrender is often associated with weakness, yet surrendering to the natural flow of life requires strength. It takes courage to commit to putting personal preferences aside and to embrace whatever present opportunities may require. Following the guidance of the universe requires action from a place of peace and depth that isn't readily found in everyday life, and this, too, takes courage. Tosha Silver writes about the courage it takes to dive into the unknown in Outrageous Openness, Letting the Divine Take the Lead. For years, Silver had aims to write, but she couldn't gather up the courage to share her writing. She had pieces of stories jotted down in various places. When she traveled, her friends would encourage her to write a blog post or article about her experiences, but Silver couldn't. She was blocked. One day, her friend Triana came over to share some odd news. Triana had visited a psychic who brought up Silver in the middle of Triana's reading. The psychic said that Silver would be happy as a successful writer. Silver brushed off the prediction, saying that she would need a miracle to make that dream come true. Suddenly, she felt sheepish. She hadn't asked for any miracles. She had been relying too heavily on her personal strength to muscle through her writing, when what she needed was the courage to invite divinity into the process. Once she saw her failure of strength, she prayed to correct the situation. She wanted to be of service and declared herself ready to be surprised by the universe. 3 months later, she got hired at her first writing job and has been writing nonstop ever since. Silver's story shows how important it is to have courage to be open to what the universe will bring. Key Insight 7. The need for control is the biggest obstacle to experiencing the miraculous flow of life. Relinquishing control takes effort and practice. Most human beings need to feel that they are in charge, yet the scope of existence is far more vast than any individual. The universe has been in existence for billions of years. It carries its own intelligence. Letting go of control allows for universal wisdom to guide the way. Sometimes, life events can be so extreme that surrender is the only available option, as Allison Fiorini learned when her 10-year-old daughter Jordana was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2015 and died in 2016. Prior to Jordana's illness, Fiorini lived a fairy tale life with her husband and their 3 children. Once Jordana became ill, Fiorini's entire life changed as she devoted herself to Jordana's care. The tragic loss broke Fiorini's heart, but it didn't shatter her spirit. Instead, she humbly accepted her loss and the pain. In the process, she discovered something truly unexpected: resilience. By emphasizing the lessons learned from the loss, Fiorini found a semblance of peace. Forced to let go of her previous image of having the perfect family, Fiorini was able to surrender to what she saw as God's plan. With faith in God, Fiorini adapted to the changes in her life. Fiorini and her husband made a conscious decision to maintain and build upon their resilience by founding Jordana's Rainbows, a movement to raise awareness of their daughter's type of childhood cancer. In surrendering and letting go of the life that they had planned for their family, Fiorini and her husband have been able to experience a deep sense of purpose and joy. Key Insight 8. Staying focused and fully present for whatever tasks are at hand leads to success. Rather than worry about the personal impact of a particular outcome, it's better to get fully immersed in tasks. Regardless of issues of hierarchy and bureaucracy, putting full effort into every activity will ultimately pave the way towards success. Ted, a young married man, is a hypothetical example of how showing up to engage with heart and soul can be transformational. In professional and personal spheres, Ted was self-conscious. He worried what his bosses thought of his background, his ideas, and even his connections. Colleagues picked up on his anxiety, which became a liability, as they felt pressure to expend extra energy reassuring him about his performance. At home, Ted struggled in his marriage to a woman he felt he didn't deserve. He often found ways to pick fights or otherwise create conflict where it didn't exist. He was constantly emotionally exhausted and not performing to his fullest capability. Only after Ted developed a mentoring relationship with one of his supervisors did he begin to see how much he was not actually present in his life. His mentor gently pointed out how much of Ted's energy went toward worrying about losing the respect of his colleagues and his wife. At the suggestion of his mentor, Ted began a daily meditation practice. This helped him be a better listener at home and at the office. He read about mindfulness as well, which gave him a framework for finding more peace in his daily life. These practices helped him ignore his internal voice of self-criticism, which freed him up to take in others' ideas, experiences, and stories. As a result, he felt like he was experiencing his life and the people in it anew. Sometimes his self-doubt would creep in, but instead of giving in to the insecurity, he would pause and tell himself that his fears were unfounded. Only then was he able to get back to being centered and engaged in his interactions with others. In a matter of months, Ted's work and personal spheres saw great improvements, the most rewarding being the happiness that resulted from feeling like he was always doing his best, detached from worry about how things were going to affect him personally. Important people. Michael A. Singer is the best-selling author of The Untethered Soul. He founded the Temple of the Universe, a spiritual community in Alachua, Florida. For 3 decades, he ran a medical software company. Author's style. Singer's life story makes for an engaging page-turner. He writes with a sense of wonder and amazement at the perfection of life bringing various threads together, better than any one person could script with their rational mind. He infuses philosophy and life lessons throughout the book. At times, he'll add that many years after a certain event, he learned a great lesson. While the lesson relates to the story he has just shared, at times he doesn't elaborate on how he came to better appreciate and understand this lesson, and so those sentiments feel incomplete. He is especially skilled at explaining how meditation affects his mind and body. The 4-part book has 56 short chapters and an introduction. Author's perspective. Singer became a meditation and yoga enthusiast in the 70s. He dropped out of his doctoral program to pursue solitude and meditation and wound up the head of a thriving spiritual community and multi-million-dollar medical software company. His surrender experiment was put to the test when he was indicted for fraud. When Singer first learned that one of his employees was committing fraud, the company launched an investigation prior to the FBI raid and subsequent charges. His writing about the experience betrays his feelings that he was the victim of a con man. This is a fair perspective, but feels out of alignment with principles of letting go and seeing the perfection in everything. The Untethered Soul earned Singer an interview with Oprah Winfrey.